my name is Sarah, and I'm trying to read 100 books in 100 days. This video will cover the review of my 7th group of books and introduce my 8th group of 10 books. I really feel like closing out group 7, I have this sense of being close. I know that I have to keep my foot on the gas and keep moving through my last 30 books, but there's something of a relief of knowing that I really only have a month's worth of books left and more than a month's worth of time left. Add to that, I had an awesome group of books to go through group 7, and overall, even though it was 4,400 pages of reading, it went by pretty fast. There was a number of different books that I liked for different reasons, and I think I'm gonna go through and point out why I like certain books and what made each of them special as I go through my reviews. But I'm gonna start right off at the top with probably the easiest book out of the group to read, and probably the one I was most excited about, and that's Gathering of Shadows, which was the second book in the Darker Shade of Magic series. I actually think this is even better than the first one. And oh yeah, it's a tournament style book, which for totally irrational reasons, I love. Anything tournament style, it just automatically makes it like 2 tiers better for me. You get to see more of Lila and Kel, you get to dive more into the interactions between Rye and Kel, and I think that's probably one of the more interesting aspects of the book. And then you get to introduce the entire cast of the Nightspire crew. Hijinks that automatically come along with a tournament style book, and it's just, overall, A+ book. The next book I'm gonna cover was probably my biggest surprise, and that's The Heart's Invisible Furies. So this was a recommendation to me a while back, and reading the description, I didn't really get a sense of what the book was going to actually be about. It's true that the book's about Cyril, who's the adopted son of 2 prominent Dubliners, and it's true that Irish history plays a large part in the book. But what I wasn't really ready for was that a lot of that Irish history is talking through a lot of the bigotry that Ireland had to overcome throughout the last 100 so years of history. You're talking about, the discrimination that a lot unwed mothers faced, the fear associated with being gay in those times. The book spans a huge amount of time, from like the 1940s till I think 2015. And you see Ireland undergo a lot of social change throughout that. Add into that a commentary on treatment of people within the AIDS crisis, and a set of characters that were just fabulously presented. And I think it was a wonderful book. I will say that it is intense. It's almost 600 pages, and it's not a light, fluffy read. I wish I had more time with it. In fact, this is the book that I think, out of any of them, I wish I didn't do it a challenge, because I think I would have enjoyed it more if I didn't have such a time pressure on myself to get it done. The next 2 books I'm going to cover together because they're part of the same duology, and that's the Carve the Mark series. Objectively, I know there's things about these 2 books that probably could be better. I don't care. I really liked reading them, so I'm going to kind of ignore those for right now. The characters were really good. The magic system and political system were well-defined and believable. The pacing was top-notch. I really never felt like there was very much slowness. I think everything kept moving. The stakes felt high, and there was unique powers, and there was awesome, really well-written female friendships. If I wanted to do a more full review, I could talk about the things that, maybe detracted a little bit from the series for me. But honestly, because of how engaged it made me, I didn't notice it until I took a step back. So I'm ignoring those for now. Following in the trend of doing 2 books at once, I'm going to cover the last 2 books in the Lunar Chronicles series now. So that was Winter and Cress. What I will say about this series was that I think each book got progressively better. I remember feeling a little bit unsure of whether I wanted to continue the series after I was done with Cinder, but now I'm really glad that I did. Even though there was a large cast of characters, which I feel like it sometimes can be hard to keep track of, I'm not sure if it was just because of the length of the books, so the amount of time that we got to spend with each character, but I really felt like I had a good grasp on each character, and that made me feel more engaged with the book. As kitschy as it was, I loved that you had this big group made out of couples. There was a ton of action, and I was extremely satisfied with the ending. Overall, I really enjoyed it a lot. It was fun to read, and the 800 pages that Winter was actually didn't feel that long as I was going through it, which was definitely a happy surprise. The next book I'm going to talk about is Persepolis. So this is actually part 1 of the Persepolis. I believe there's a second part to it that I will maybe at some point end up buying. This book ended up being really interesting and really my first graphic novel that I really read as an adult. I thought it was really good. I feel like the illustrations really added to the emotions of the book, and it helped me understand better of what the author was going through. What I really like about this book is that it's a really honest memoir. I mean, the author is a teenager during the Islamic Revolution. It's not like you spend the entire book focusing only on the Islamic Revolution to the detriment of talking about her personal life. It's interspread between the two, and I think that's what really makes this book wonderful, is it helps you realize that even during large historic events, people are still living their lives, and relatively small concerns still make up the bulk of what people think about during their day. The author is just a normal teenager who's living through these really intense times. I think that helps provide a lot more empathy to other people. It definitely makes me want to try more graphic novels. Next book that I'm going to talk about is Brave New World. So this book, out of any of the other ones in this group, I think really made me think the most about, which is something that I love about classic dystopian fiction. I mean, really, Brave New World is the first modern dystopia. The theme of this book is really around the incompatibility of happiness and freedom, and what the government's role is. Is it to keep people happy, or is it to give them the most autonomy possible? I think one of the things that really makes me enjoy classic dystopian fiction is that it's not focused primarily on the characters. It's focused on the world and the hubris of people as a group. And it takes the current trend that people are worried about or excited about or seeing, and it just maxes it out and says, what if we keep going on this path? I think that's what makes dystopian fiction, especially classic dystopian fiction, so interesting. Part of me always wishes there was more books like 1984 and Brave New World where there's objectively not a happy ending. Finally, I'm gonna get to the two books that, just weren't as good as all the rest. And the first one's gonna be Essentialism. Nothing particularly against Essentialism. I thought it was an interesting book. I thought it really outlined what the benefits of being an essentialist is, which is primarily being able to really do something great because you're not focusing on doing 100 different things at once. You're focusing on having one focused path for you to make the biggest difference possible. I think in a lot of ways this book pairs really well with the Career Manifesto because at the essence, it's really trying to get you to do the same thing. It's trying to get you to think critically, cut out the fat in your life, and do something that's really impactful. However, I think this book does better for people who are maybe a little bit further on with their careers, where you have more of these choices given directly to you. I think it's valuable at the beginning of your career, but I just didn't get as much out of it as I'm sure other people might. And finally, you have the ocean at the end of the lane. So this book was actually pretty short, but it was bizarre. I guess it could be slated under a thriller, but there was kind of magic, and I'm not even totally sure what the point of the story was supposed to be. I think that's what made me not really like it as much, is I wasn't sure what I was supposed to be getting out of the book at the end of it. As purely a form of entertainment, it was, pretty good, but I just wish there was a more direct message that it seemed to be pushing me towards. Maybe I'm just dumb, maybe there was something there that I completely missed, but it didn't do much for me. Now I'm going to introduce Group 8. So going into Group 8, I've decided, since I have a number of spots left for rereads, and I don't really have to do that many vegetables, and I really just kind of want to push through to the end, that I was going to make this group a little bit more focused on, things that I just kind of want to read. So you'll notice that I have a couple guilty pleasure types books in here. For whatever reason, I was searching through my old book collection on iTunes, and I saw a couple of books that I really enjoyed as a preteen. And for whatever reason, I had a nostalgia hankering and decided to read the first two books in the Of Poseidon series, or by Anna Banks. So that's Of Poseidon and Of Triton. So those will be the first two on my list. If I remember them correctly, they are totally cliche, totally quintessential YA novels, and I am pumped for it. So the next group of books in my show of unfettered hedonism is the entire Evelyn Maynard series. This series will be a reread for me. It's made up of 3 books: Variant Lost, Vital Found, and Vivid Avowed. So these books are definitely smutty romances, not PG. So, but what I remember really liking about the series is basically the setup for it. A small portion of the world's population has essentially superpowers. And for those people that do have basically these superpowers, if they find their vital, who is another person that has a connection to them, that can bring in basically like fuel for their superpower, they can become exponentially more powerful. So really just reading these books because I enjoy reading them. They're quick reads for me. And I know I'm going to enjoy it, even if it's kind of embarrassing. So the next book that I'm going to read is The Power, and basically the setup for this book is it's current day based, but then women all of a sudden emanate electricity and use that as basically a weapon. The next book that I'm going to read is a historical fiction book called A Gentleman in Moscow. So this was a recommendation by my Nana, and I'm super excited about it. I think it's basically about a former aristocrat who is forced to live in a hotel. The next book I'm going to read is One Dark Throne. So this is the second book in the Three Dark Crowns series, which from my understanding of the description is hopefully when more of the action starts taking place. So again, I'm listening to this on audiobook, so I think it'll be really good to continue on with those characters since I enjoyed them so much the last time. Next book I'm going to read is the fifth book in the Chronicles of Narnia series, and that's Voyage of the Dawn Treader. So this book, if I remember correctly from my childhood, Lucy and Edmund go back to Narnia with their cousin Eustace and fall in on the Dawn Treader. I think Prince Caspian's also again in this book, so very excited for that as well. And my final book is going to be All American Boys. So this is by the author of Long Way Down. My understanding of this book is it basically deals with a African-American kid who's subject to brutality, and a white kid stands witness to it, and basically the entire interaction around that and everything that ensues from this one event. So those are my books for this group 8. With how many books that I stacked in here that are completely just guilty pleasure type books, I'm expecting it to go by quickly. I think I've made it over the 25,000 pages mark as a total once I finish group 8. So that's super exciting. I think it's now like 26,500 or something like that, which is crazy. So many books. But still can't take my foot off the gas. Still have to get through these next couple groups and then be done. I know this last group is not particularly educational or vegetable-ish, but I'm still really excited to read it, and I think I've kind of earned it after so many groups where I've had a lot of vegetables and not many rereads. So I'm taking that opportunity. Thank you so much for taking the time to watch my video. I hope you continue watching my journey, and overall, I guess, wish me luck.